So, hello there, and welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. I'm Spy Knight, and in these podcasts, I love talking all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy. So, let's get into it, shall we? Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy is the fourth and so-called final installment in the Bridget Jones franchise. The reason I say so-called there is because I've seen it advertised as the final Bridget Jones film. Like, I'm pretty sure the trailer said the final chapter, if I'm not mistaken. But I've seen some press interviews for this film, and I've heard people talk about it, and they haven't been referring to it as the final Bridget Jones film. So maybe it will, maybe it is, maybe it won't be. Who knows? I doubt that because I've seen the film now. Hence why I'm reviewing it in today's podcast. I've seen the film, and the film rounds everything off in a neat bow. So I very much doubt there is going to be another Bridget Jones film. But who knows? Maybe there's going to be a fifth Bridget Jones film in the next couple of years. I just doubt it. But for the sake of this review today, let's say that this is the final Bridget Jones movie. And it's also the fourth Bridget Jones movie, as I've already said. And Renee Zellweger returns in the lead role as Bridget Jones, should I say, alongside many other supporting actors who come back to reprise their roles for this film, who've been in the previous three Bridget Jones movies. You know, Bridget's friends all come back. Bridget's father, played by Jim Broadbent, he comes back. The one who played Bridget's mother, she comes back. You get a lot of returning supporting cast members, and also we have the return of Hugh Grant in this film, who was in the first two Bridget Jones movies. He wasn't in the third because everyone thought he was dead, and it was revealed at the end of Bridget Jones 3. What's it called? Bridget Jones. Bridget Jones' Baby. I think that's what it's called. I just couldn't think of the name. Anyway, you find out at the end of that film that Hugh Grant's character is alive, so he returns in this movie as well. This is Hugh Grant returned to the rom-com genre, because I don't think he's been in a rom-com film for a while, but I might be mistaken there. Anyway, all that got me interested, particularly Hugh Grant returning, because I love Hugh Grant. Particularly the roles he's been taken recently, like since Paddington 2, I think Hugh Grant has been in a role with the roles he's taking, and I thought that the addition of him in this film was something to get excited about, because he has spoken quite a bit in the past about how much, quite a bit in recent years about how much he detests the rom-coms like Notting Hill and Love Actually and Four Weddings and a Funeral. You know, the rom-coms that he starred in that really gave him his big break. He's spoken about how much he detests those films, and I'm like, okay, but they did make you, and now you're coming back to do another rom-com. I'm not sure how that works, but the fact that he was coming back did get me excited. And I'm not the biggest fan of the Bridget Jones franchise. I enjoy the first film. I don't think it's a great film. The second film I think is fine. It's not terrible, it's just not that good. And the third film is actually my favourite of the Bridget Jones films, because it's the one that felt the most joyful, in my opinion. It's the one where it felt like everyone on screen was having fun making the movie. It felt like a big reunion, and like they wanted to make the best finale to the Bridget Jones franchise. So I was a little surprised when I heard that a fourth movie was in production, but nevertheless I was excited. I was looking forward to the film quite a bit, because, you know, as much as I love going to the cinema to see all different types of movies, there's been a lot of movies I watched recently which are tough watches, which are quite heartbreaking and, you know, a challenging cinema. And sometimes you just want to go to the cinema and have a good time, not take the film too seriously, and just be entertained by it. You laugh at the comedy, if it's funny, obviously, and, you know, maybe let the film hit you in the feels. In the end, what films need to do is make you feel, and if a film does that and it's entertaining at the same time, I think it's doing its job. And I thought that the new Bridget Jones movie, Bridget Jones Mad About the Boy, I forgot the name of it then, it's not a particularly memorable name. I thought that that was going to be the case with this film. So that is why I went to go and see it on the day it came out. And the IMDb plot synopsis for the film goes as follows. Bridget Jones, once again played by Renee Zellweger in this film, navigates life as a widow and single mom with the help of her family, friends and former lover Daniel, played by Hugh Grant in this film, reprising his role. Back to work, and on the act, she's pursued by a younger man, played by Lee Woodall in the film, and maybe, just maybe, her son's science teacher, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. Apologies for mispronouncing his name there, but those two that I've just mentioned, Leo Woodwall and Chiwetel Ejiofor, they're new additions to the Bridget Jones franchise. They're newcomers to this film. And that's pretty much all you need to know about this new Bridget Jones movie before seeing it. And honestly, I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was a good film. Is it a great film? No. Does it have big flaws? Yes. And do parts of it not work? Yes. But when it does work, it works really well. And I didn't expect to say this, but I found this to be the most emotional of the Bridget Jones movies, because in the end, this is a film all about grief. If you don't know already, if you haven't seen the trailers for this film, essentially Bridget Jones has lost her husband. Her husband, Colin Firth's character, who's in the previous 3 Bridget Jones movie and does reprise his role in a cameo role, you would say, in this film. You do see him occasionally, this sort of ghostly figure, in this sort of vision, you know, Bridget and her family are seeing. Colin Firth's character, who was in the previous 3 Bridget Jones movies, he has died. That's not a spoiler, it was revealed in the trailers, it's also revealed very early on in this film, like literally in the opening minute. He's died, and the film is really all about grief and all about how we keep on going once we have lost a loved one, how that affects us, but also how that can make us stronger. And on a personal level, that worked for me because I've spoken about this plenty of times on this channel in the past. I lost my dad in 2022, so on a personal level, the way that the characters dealt with grief in this film worked for me. And also, it worked for me because they did it well. They dealt with all the ideas surrounding grief and surrounding how we I don't want to say move on, because I don't think move on's the right phrase, and I think this film tackles that whole idea. You're not really moving on after loved one's gone, you're just trying to keep going. So I'm not going to say how people move on after loved one's gone, but how people keep going. I think that's all done beautifully in the film. I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but there's a scene with balloons which I was getting a little choked up at. There was a couple of moments in the film which I was getting a little choked up at. I mean, the film towards the end does get a little sentimental. I wouldn't mind like a pop song thrown in there. I wouldn't mind there to be a little bit of comedy thrown in there. And there are bits of, you know, little sprinkles of comedy towards the end of the film, but it's mostly, it becomes very melodramatic. And I would have, a little too melodramatic for my liking, but the film kind of got away with it because it earned its emotion. And that is why the film worked for me. It's got large parts which don't really work, large parts which feel like they're trying to go for comedy, and it's not as funny as perhaps the writers in the writers' room when they're writing this movie thought it was going to be. And again, there are parts which, you know, don't really work, but when the film is focusing on grief, and when the film is focusing on Bridget getting back to her old self, that is when it works, and that is when it's entertaining as well. And I thought that Renee Zellweger just sunk back into the role of Bridget like she'd never left it. I mean, I think the last Bridget Jones movie was 14 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. I think it came out in 2016, so yeah, 14 years ago, and it didn't feel like she'd left that character. Seeing Hugh Grant back was wonderful, because you can tell he's the same sort of character that he played in the first 2 movies, but more grown up. yet he brings something to his performance which makes you really care about that character this time around. Because in the first two movies, you don't really care about him. You don't really like him too much. You know he's up to something. You know he's just doing it all for his own. What am I trying to get to? You know he's just doing it all for his... But you know he's just doing everything for himself in the first two Bridget Jones movies. You know he's a very self-absorbed person. But in this film, you get the feeling he actually cares a lot about other people. Like he's looking after Bridget's kids. And that's something that I was, as soon as I saw that happen in the film, I was like, oh wow, this character's changed. And I liked the direction they took that character, and I thought seeing Hugh Grant back in this film, he's not in loads of this film. I would have liked to see him a bit more in it, and clearly only got him for like a week or two on set. But the fact that he did come back, and the fact that he is in this film, does make it better. And it was a joy to see him back in this movie, a joy to see him in another Bridget Jones film. Also, I liked seeing a lot of the supporting cast return, and I think the newcomers, Lee Woodall, I think it's Lee Woodall, he's really good in there. And I think Chiwetel Ejiofor is kind of the standout in this film. I mean, other than Hugh Grant, who is a standout in pretty much any film he's in recently, other than Hugh Grant, Chiwetel Ejiofor is pretty much the standout in this film, because it seemed like he was having fun, and at the same time it felt like he was playing the character authentically. I don't really see Chiwetel Ejiofor play funny or play fun characters in many movies. I know he's been in Doctor Strange. I know he's been in other. I know he was in the latest Venom. I didn't see that film, but I know he's been in other fun movies, if you will, in the past, movies which are meant to be just entertaining. But even in those films, he seems like he's playing quite serious characters. And in this film, he does play a serious character, but you also see a funny side to him, particularly towards the end of the film. And I thought Chiwetel Ejiofor played that really great. I loved him in the film. I'm so glad that he was in this movie, because he's not the sort of person you expect to be cast in a Bridget Jones film, but it's the sort of person who really works in this role. And I tell you why he really worked, because this film has this serious tone to it. It feels like they wanted to make a Bridget Jones movie in which they approach the character of Bridget Jones as if she was a real person. Because you watch her in this film, and this was the first Bridget Jones movie in which I actually believed she was a real person. And that worked to me quite a bit. I like it when you get these characters being around in movies for quite a bit of time, and they feel kind of fantastical, and then you get to see them in later life and they feel more grounded. One of the reasons I loved the last Indiana Jones film, because Indiana Jones in the last Indiana Jones film, in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, actually felt like a real person. It felt like, okay, this is what Indiana Jones would be like if he existed. This is how his life would be. And that's how I felt with Bridget Jones in this movie. And that's another reason I liked it. Plus, it was funny. It wasn't quite as funny as I hoped it would be, but there were some moments where I laughed out loud. I was smiling in the scenes I think I was meant to be smiling. And yeah, a lot of it works. Again, there are large parts which don't. And I'm not sure of the whole Lee Woodall. Although he's good in the film, I'm not sure if his character works as well as perhaps the filmmakers wanted him to work. And again, there are parts which don't work. For sure, I could really dwell on the things that are wrong with it. I could really dwell on the things that are wrong with it if I wanted to. But you know what? I'm not going to, because the film worked for me. And it works for me on a level that I didn't expect it to. So yeah, it gets a pass for me on a lot of the problems that it has. It hit me in the feels more than I expected it to. I came out of this movie and I was like, wow, I didn't expect to be moved that much by a film like this. I mean, I don't usually cry at movies. I'm not trying to sound manly there or anything. I'm not a manly person whatsoever. It's a thing with me. I don't usually cry at films. I don't remember a film I've ever cried. I've got quite emotional at films in the past, but I haven't cried at films in the past. And I didn't cry watching this film, but I got choked up. And yeah, when a film gets you choked up, you can tell it's worked. It's not the best Bridget Jones movie. I still think the best Bridget Jones movie is the third film, because that's the most joyful, and it felt like that was a film where everybody on screen was having the most fun. And I will say one last thing: Patrick Dempsey's character from the third film is completely ignored in this movie. Like, at the end of Bridget Jones 3, you'd think, okay, I can't say his flipping name apparently. Patrick Dempsey's character is going to be about in the third film, in the fourth film even. Nope. He's not about in this movie. There's no mention of him. I was like, okay. He just kind of forgetting that whole thing, like who's the dad in the third film, which I quite enjoyed. But saying that, it's not the most joyful of the Bridget Jones series, and it's not. I wouldn't say it's better than the first film, but I would say it's better than the second film. Actually, no, I might prefer the first film. I think most people would probably prefer the first film, but I think, again, just on an emotional level and on a level where Bridget actually feels like a proper character, that is why I will say that this film is better than the first film. For me personally. Most people disagree with me there, but I do think this is probably the second best Bridget Jones movie. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of this franchise. I'm going to admit it's not a high bar saying this is the second best Bridget Jones movie. You know, that's not me calling it one of the greatest movies of all time or anything like that. No, but it's worth a watch, especially if you've enjoyed the previous three films, because it provides a satisfying conclusion to Bridget Jones' story, and it's got laughs. It makes you smile. It's got a good story in there, and it's got some really great messages about grief as well, which I think everybody needs to hear, especially if you've lost a loved one. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy. You know what? I'm feeling generous today. I don't know quite why I'm feeling generous, but I'm going to say that's a 7.5 out of 10. I would just say that this is a solid film. The second half makes it a solid film, because the first half I was sat there thinking, okay, I'm not sure if I'm loving this. I'm not sure if I'm really enjoying this too much. I'm not sure if I'm just trying to enjoy it rather than actually enjoying it. But in the second half, I was really into it, to the point that I had this thing on my mind. I couldn't quite get it off my mind. And watching the first half of the film, then watching the second half of the film, it completely escaped my mind. I was like, oh my god, I walked out to cinema, I was like, oh yeah, I was thinking about that in the first half. I couldn't stop thinking about that thing in the first half, but in the second half, I completely forgot about that thing. And so yeah, that tells you how much the film works for me. Again, it's not brilliant, it's not anything groundbreaking in terms of the rom-com genre, but it works because it's all about grief, which sounds like it's going to be quite a, sounds like it's not going to be a fun watch. But that being said, it manages to be a fun watch nonetheless. It's another Bridget Jones movie that I think, is a satisfying conclusion to this franchise. If it is a conclusion at that. And so, all in all, as I've already said, and as I'm going to say once more, in this podcast today, Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy, is a 7.5 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy, please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this video. And look forward to many more videos and many more podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. As I've already said, thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast. And I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.